2017 was a good year for how mental health is portrayed in media. Lady Bird had some of the best representations of depression and dialogue so real and relatable, it hurt me.
Ooh, good shit, good shit.
The End of the Fucking World effortlessly dealt with topics like social anxiety, amongst other things.
Zooey mama, that's some good stuff.
And I didn't see Feed, but I've heard good things about it, so, you know, go however far you want with that.
Maybe it's bad, I don't know.
And, well, there was Split. That came out.
My name's Hedwig.
How old are you?
9.
Please stop this. We don't need this.
You know, you win some, you lose some. But anyway, what about video games?
I don't fucking know.
Well, in my opinion, we may have been given one of the best examples of how to portray and write for mental health in video games, and honestly, most of media in general, with Night in the Woods, a game developed by Infinite Fall and currently out for PC, PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and soon for iOS and Android apparently. Hot damn!
Soon there's not gonna be an excuse to not play this game.
Except for the price tag. The first thing that Night in the Woods does right is that you can tell the writers for the game personally deal with many of the issues the game brings up.
Nothing better than first-hand experience. You feel me, son? You feel me? You feel where I'm going with this?
Scott Benson, who animated and illustrated the game, has type 2 bipolar disorder. Lead programmer Alec Holowka, Alec runs the Everybody's Fucked Up podcast, an interview-type podcast that tackles with topics like mental illness by interviewing people that experience them, and to break stereotypes around certain mental health issues by humanizing the people that deal with them.
And also, it's pretty cool. I recommend checking it out. Thank you.
Alex said in an interview with gaming news site Kotaku, "I wasn't seeing a lot of games doing it and exploring these issues, so that kind of made it an interesting thing to explore. And it kind of fit with the idea of doing this generally down-to-earth subject matter compared to a lot of games that are more about, like, characters that are super powerful. Our characters aren't that powerful, which I think is also interesting and relatable."
I don't know, dude. I'm pretty powerful. You know, the kind of characters I relate to. You know, like Goku, Superman. You know, I'm kind of that kind of deal. Fred the horse. God tier character.
And that's what makes Night in the Woods such a powerful game. Night in the Woods isn't a game about mental health issues. It's a game about people who experience mental health issues.
See what I did there? Haha.
May, the main protagonist of the game, experiences depression and anxiety and has a dissociative disorder which causes her to sometimes be completely disconnected from reality.
Disassociation.
It's implied that Gregg,
Who's without question the best character in the game, okay?
has bipolar disorder and troubles with self-worth.
Dude, he's so wacky, you won't know what he's gonna do next.
Angus struggles with an abusive past and unhealthy home life as a kid.
Got a rough time as a kid, got dealt the short stick.
And after B's mom dies of cancer, she has to give up her dreams of college to stay home and take care of her dad after he has a mental breakdown.
Technically not a mental health issue, but, you know.
Oftentimes in video games, mental health issues are exaggerated and demonized, and usually given to the villain or antagonist in a game. Many video game villains are just written off as insane, and use that as an excuse for their evil behavior. Some examples are Vaz from Far Cry 3.
What the definition of insanity is.
Have you ever heard the definition of insanity? Cause from what I can tell, apparently it's just being a dick to people for no reason.
Sandra Cohen in BioShock.
I've waited so long for something tasty to come to this little burg, but all that pass are yokels and rubes.
I think it's safe to say putting people in plaster, you know, a little too far, a little too crazy for my tastes, you know.
And Psychos in Borderlands.
Time to play! Time to pound some meat puppets!
Now, clearly these guys have it figured out.
All very just insane. That's why they're crazy. You know, they're crazy, that's it, whatever.
But wait!
I hear you say.
Those games came out years ago!
Ah, well, what about Sullivan Nuth?
We're taking care of my children. I'm powerless again.
I didn't forget about Outlast 2, you assholes. Fuck Outlast 2. Fuck it! When it's given to the protagonist, it's often simply represented as a sanity meter that makes crazy, weird visuals and hallucinations appear.
Oh, my vision's all blurry and shit. Someone turned up the particle effect slider up too high.
Oh no, my
my vision is all wiggly, wacky ass.
Now, keep in mind, I love Bioshock. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Don't Starve, I probably have like over 40 hours logged in that game. Just because they have a slight flaw doesn't mean that the games as a whole are bad, but there's something that is worth being addressed. The protagonists in Night in the Woods not only have these mental health issues, but their issues aren't treated as their only character trait. Their mental health is purposefully ambiguous, just like it usually is in real life.
Sometimes people don't know exactly what's wrong with them.
NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, says that 59% of adults in the US aren't diagnosed.
Ooh, hardcore statistics.
So it may be safe to say a large portion of these people don't know what's wrong with them, but just know something's off. People don't start conversations off like,
Dear friend, I have not seen my friends for 2 weeks now. I am starting to get bad again. Dear friend, I have not seen my friends for 2 weeks now. I'm starting to get bad again.
yeah, that's right, I'm dissing on Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Fuck that movie.
I live in Pittsburgh, and I still hate that movie. I'm sick of people praising it like it handles mental illness flawlessly.
Newsflash.
It doesn't, and just relies on trope after trope of embarrassingly corny dialogue with a message that feels like it's being shoved down my throat. If that movie helped you, then great. I'm glad it did. But in all of its efforts to address suicide in teenagers, all it did was make this teenager want to die so I wouldn't have to watch the rest of it.
Shots fired.
Sorry about that. Let's look at this scene from Night in the Woods. If you want to avoid spoilers, then I guess this is where you should leave off. So, in this scene, May is in the woods with Gregg after exploring the woods around, having a, good old-fashioned knife fight between friends, just friends, stabbing each other in the hands, shooting a crossbow at a model of the god of the forest, just normal things, normal stuff. After all that, the scene kind of calms down and is brought to a quiet point where Gregg talks to May and opens up a bit. This scene shows how to write natural, character-driven dialogue. Gregg opens up about his insecurities and self-worth. His scenes up to this point have focused on comedy, but now the game takes a moment to explore him as a character, and his venting helps you grow closer to him as a character. It adds depth. He could have stayed as a comic relief goofball, but Night in the Woods doesn't treat him like that because no one in real life is just a straight-up comedic relief goofball. People have layers and depth that reach deeper than simple traits. Scott Benson said in regards to representation in media, representation is just like, oh, that's nice to see, and that may be empowering, or it may give you some solace, but I think for a lot of people, that representation is important because it could just be the only time that anyone has ever verified and validated that experience. Sometimes you just need to have someone say, you're not, broken or anything. This is a thing that occurs in your life, and it's okay. So here's to better representation of mental health in media. Here's to Night in the Woods, pretty much my favorite game of 2017. And that's it. Thank you for watching, despite the fact I've never done a video like this before. It's really different. I'm probably never gonna do it again. Haha!